Welcome to the Black Male Impact. We have another conversation with Dr. Will. But before we get into the conversation, I want to allow Dr. Will, who is a dynamic speaker and author and trainer. And also, he published 50 books. That's impressive. And he's also a military veteran, but I know he has been doing great work out there, not just for himself, but helping others to be successful. Dr. Will, before we get into the conversation, please share with us.
Yes, so I'm originally from Compton, California. That's an inner city. I have a story that's not uncommon to many young men that grew up in the inner city, raised by my single mother, and my grandmother didn't really have a relationship with my father, but from my grandmother, really learned some great principles. She gave me a great foundation in my life, a foundation of character, a foundation of faith, a foundation of service. And so I grew up in this inner city that was very challenging. Like many young men in the inner city of America, found myself getting into trouble. But then by God's grace, had an opportunity to join the United States Army, served in the Army for 6 years. And that's when I really began to get passionate about personal development. And that's when my life began to turn for the better. I got introduced to my passion and my purpose in life. And that's what I've been doing now for the last 25 years, traveling literally around the world, spreading a message of possibility, spreading a message of passion, and letting everyone know that you have genius potential on the inside of you. You just need to tap into it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's what drew me to the work that you are doing. And also, when I saw there are many books that you published, I said, man, that's a goal, but that shows discipline and dedication, not just telling people what to do, but also showing people that it is possible. And that's important, and getting people to really believe in the message. All right. So I'm going to get straight into, were you going to say something? Okay. I'll get straight into the convocation with this question. I'll start with this question. What is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
That's a great question. The mindset, anybody who wants to make an impact, I think you have to have a vision of impact. You have to begin to see yourself making an impact and making a difference, which is something I believe each and every one of us have the possibility of doing. When we look at the word leadership, and I believe each and every one of us are leaders, when we look at the definition of leadership, leadership just means to be an example. And so each of us every single day have an opportunity to be an example. But then you have to ask yourself, what type of example do you want to be? Do you want to be the example that leads people to becoming a better version of themselves? Or do you want to be an example of individual that pulls people down? So you get to determine as the leader, which type of example do you want to be? And so I think that's where the mindset really starts. It starts with you having a vision that you want to make a difference in the world.
And I think that is important. And I really love that perspective, because when you know what you want to do, it helps to direct your focus on that information or that guidance. So I think that is really important. And thanks for sharing that. So my next question to you is, what advice do you have for the men listening on how they can play a role in creating positive change?
So I like that word role. And once again, going back, building on that whole concept of vision, I need every man that's listening to us through this broadcast to understand that you have a role to play. You have a role to play. And so it's understanding that each and every one of us are designed and crafted and created to play a role. And for me, years ago, I began to ask the question of the universe, what's my role? What's my meaning in life? I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know how it was going to pan out. I didn't know back then I was going to write 50 books. I didn't know back then that I was going to travel literally all around the world, but I did know I wanted to make a difference. I knew that. I said, you know what? I don't want to just sit like a bump on a log and do nothing. I wanted to have positive impact in my community, in my family, and in my arena. And so I think it starts there. You just understanding that you have a role to play and to begin to get curious about that role, begin to ask the question. I always say that the better your question, the better the answer. And so when you learn how to start asking better questions, why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I designed to do? What is my skill set? What information have I learned? What skills have I honed over the years that's going to make me an effective person in this world? And when you begin to ask those type of questions, the universe will begin to speak back to you and point you in the direction that you're supposed to go.
Man, that is, I really love that respond because we have heard ask the questions, and sometimes we don't ask ourselves the questions that can help us to dig deeper and find out about ourselves. So I really love the perspective because, again, we sometimes don't ask the questions. And as men, sometimes we don't ask those questions of ourselves. And if we're going to find out more about ourselves, we need to ask those questions that can help us to direct our focus and even direct the things that we pursue. Because the more we know about ourselves, the better it is. My next question, and most of my questions are kind of close to each other. So this next question, how can we as Black men help to change the narrative today?
So, one of the first things I believe that every man listening to us has to take responsibility. I think responsibility plays a huge role in how our families look, how our neighborhoods look, how our states and how our nation looks. And so, if every man will take the challenge of responsibility, number one, the responsibility of self. I knew for myself, I grew up and I didn't take responsibility. I blamed everybody else. I blamed my circumstances. I blamed my mother. I blamed the society. I blamed the government. But the moment I begin to take personal responsibility for myself is the moment I begin to walk into my power. Now, I understand there's some things that have happened in our lives, that's happened in my life. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault, but it is your responsibility on how you're going to respond to whatever has happened to you. So, are you going to respond in a positive way, or are you going to respond in a negative way? And so, no matter whatever happens to me, I always take personal responsibility, because when I take personal responsibility, that puts the power back in my hand. If I don't take responsibility, then I'm leaving it up to you. I'm giving the choice to you on how I'm going to live out the rest of my life. I'm giving the choice to you on how I'm going to see myself. But when I take personal responsibility of how I want to show up in this world, what type of example that I want to be, what type of leader do I want to be, what type of man do I want to be, when I take that personal responsibility, that's when everything begins to change.
And personal responsibility is key to changing the narrative because if we don't, as you said, we're giving our power away. And a personal responsibility helps us to get the power back. And once we have the power, we can do just about anything. So I really love that perspective. And a lot of times, and I will always say this, a lot of times we give up our power. We give others the power over us by thinking that they should do something for us when we should be doing a lot of things for ourselves. So I really love that. So I'm going to go into my next question. What or who has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path you're on?
Yeah. When I think about mentors, and when I think about coaches and people that have really shown an example for me, I have to go first back to my grandmother. My grandmother was the first example that I saw of selfless service and giving back to the community, even though she didn't have much as it related to finances, and didn't have much as it related to resources. She always served, and I always saw my grandmother serving. And so, without even knowing, just observing her life, I picked up on that attitude and that desire to serve humanity. And I think that's the greatest level of excellence you can be involved in, is serving each other, serving humanity, building up other people. And so when I think about the greatest impact or the greatest influence on my life, it has to be my grandmother.
Man, that is foundation. Once you see it there, it's easier to transpire in your life. And we know that's what you do, provide service for millions of people, especially in speaking, because I know you do that all the time, where you help speakers to become better speakers or even to learn how to navigate the speaking world. So I know you have been committed to service from the military to now as a civilian serving humanity. So that's important. So my next question to you, what is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in our society today? But Dr. Moreland, what what is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today?
So that's a loaded question, because when we talk about the Black male, we understand that the Black male is not monolithic, right? So there's some of us that are doing very well. There's some of us that are inside of our journey, and then there's some of us that are struggling. There's those that are in the inner city, but I think that it all comes back to wherever you are in life, your choices are going to determine where you go next. Your choices are going to determine where you go next. And so when I think about the state of the Black male, it's going to continuously be the choices that we make that are going to make all the difference. And so no matter where you are on the spectrum, if you're doing good in life, you got to continuously make good choices, because you're one choice away of losing it all. So you got to be cognizant of that. If you're going through right now, you're on your path, you're on the journey, continuously to make great choices. That's going to lead you to where you want to be. If you're not where you want to be in life, you have the power of choice. You can say today, I'm going to start making different choices that's going to lead me to where I want to be. And so it goes back to where I started out in the beginning, talking about vision. You get a vision of who you want to be. You get a vision of how you want to live. And then you start making choices in line with that vision.
Man, that is profound, I should say, to say the least, because choices will help us to get to where we want to be. And the vision should have choices that aligns with it if we're going to achieve what we want. So my next question to you is, what change do you want to see in general amongst Black men? I know you share a lot about from having a vision and making the right choices, but what else could you add to that?
Yeah. So for the men that are listening to us, I would say find that skill that you know better than anyone. Find that skill that you can do better than anyone, and then start looking for opportunities to exploit that skill. Because I believe each and every one of us have been given at least one skill. Some of us have multiple skills, but I know each of us have been given at least one skill. And identify that skill. What is the thing that you can do better than anyone? What is that thing that makes you come alive? What is that thing that gives you confidence that when you're doing it, you know that there's no one else that does this thing like me? Find that one skill. And the more you begin to work that skill, hone in on that skill, doors will begin to open for you, and platforms will begin to open for you when you begin to become an expert in that area of your skill. Other people will begin to recognize you. Other people will begin to recommend you. Other people will begin to acknowledge you when you begin to hone in on that skill. There's a proverb that says, your gift will make room for you. Your gift will make room for you. So that gift is that particular skill that you have. And I teach men all around the world, and I teach young men all around the world. You want to identify the skill. For me, the skill is communication. And so That skill has allowed me to travel literally all around the world to create a lifestyle for me that I would have never imagined. But when I tapped into that skill of communication, being able to take a complex idea and simplify it and teach it to others so then they can use it and act upon it, that was the thing that changed and transformed my life. And so I know for each and every gentleman that's listening to us, if you will begin to just tap into that skill that you have and begin to exploit that skill with the opportunities that you find, your life will be different.
And thank you, thank you. Skill set is important. But let me ask this question though. Between you sharing the knowledge or speaking or communicating or training others to speak, which do you prefer of the two?
I love both of them, but I really just love working with individuals, hearing their stories, hearing their journey, and then helping them to take their story and transform it into something where they can reach and serve other people. And so we have our academy where we teach speakers how to do that. And that's where I get real joy. All of us have a story. And I tell our students all the time, your story is someone's medicine. Your story is someone's medicine. Someone's going to listen to you, someone's going to connect to you, and you're going to be the prescription that they need. You're going to be that medicine, that dose of positivity, that dose of motivation, that dose of inspiration that they need, that's going to encourage them to wake up one more day, that's going to encourage them to get up one more time, that's going to encourage them not to quit, that's going to encourage them to keep on fighting for their opportunity. And so out of the two, I love being on the stage, I love speaking, but I love being behind the scenes, working with our speakers, helping them craft out their message so they can have a platform that reaches the world.
And that's lovely. That's lovely. And when you love both, you can differentiate when you just want to see others to share their message to the world or come alive in sharing their message. So that's I really love that. So my next question is this: what was a pivotal moment in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I think about it, I go back to when I was a young 20-year-old, just starting my military career. One of my leaders asked me the most important question that anybody could ask me. And at that point, he asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I call that a vision question. He was asking me, what was my vision? And at the time, I didn't have a vision. I didn't see myself 5 years from that point because for the majority of my life, most people told me I wasn't going to make it. Most people told me I was going to end up in jail. Most people told me that I was going to be dead by the time I was 18 or 19. So I never saw myself becoming a man. I never saw myself having a family. I never saw myself being a productive member of society. I didn't think I was going to be around. And so when he asked me this question, it challenged me to, number one, ask myself, do you want to live? Do you want to live? And the answer was emphatically, yes, I want to live. I didn't want to die young. And so when he asked me that question, it began to make me start stretching my thinking process. And that was the pivotal point because that set me on the journey of once I told him where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be in 5 years, we now had a framework to begin to work with. And so with that framework, I was then able to start setting goals toward that framework. I started setting goals to get me toward that vision. And so, yeah, it was as a young 20-year-old when his name was Command Sergeant Major Babs, when he asked me that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That literally lit a fire under me to begin to pursue my best self.
And that's having a vision of our future will really challenge us to think beyond now. And also, as you mentioned in one of the answer, where we start make those choices that relates to the vision. So that's really a question that we should even ask ourselves. Where do we see ourselves 5 years from now? Because it helps to direct the actions we take, the choices we make. So I think that is really important. That was maybe that's why we have you right here and impacting millions around the world. So my next question to you is, what life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation?
Yeah. One of the most powerful things I've learned later in life is to have patience. A lot of times we want it overnight. A lot of times we want it real fast. And that, especially growing up in the environment that I grew up in, wanting it fast, wanting it overnight is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for bad choices. It's a recipe for doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing. And so as I get older in life, I value patience. You know, there's a proverb that says patience is a virtue. And I realize that even more now. And so even though we want nice things, even though we want to achieve things, I tell my clients all the time, it happens over time, not overnight. And so fall in love with the process and not the result. Fall in love with the process and not the result. In essence, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. You're going to have time to enjoy it. So you don't have to rush getting there. I tell people, if I'm leaving Phoenix and I'm driving to New York, that's a 3-day trip. Don't try to make the trip in a day and a half. Don't try to make the trip in 2 days. Enjoy the trip. Enjoy the 3 days. Have the mindset that it's going to take 3 days. So allow it to take 3 days. Whenever you try to do it faster than that, you're going to get speeding tickets. You're going to raise the probability of you having an accident because you're speeding. So enjoy the journey. So patience for me has been one of the most important lessons that I've learned as I've gotten older in life.
I think that is important because, especially this generation, they want everything instant. They always say the microwave generation. They want it overnight, and there's a process to everything. And if you really want to enjoy the experience, going through the process is important. So patience, I think, as you shared, it's really critical as we take this journey on, this journey of life. And I think once we learn patience, we'll enjoy the process better so we can get to the goal. So thanks for sharing that. And so my next question to you, before I ask my final question, where can the listeners find you and help support your work to make a difference?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Simply, you can follow me at Dr. Will Speaks. That's DrWillSpeaks. Dr. Will Speaks on all social media platforms. That's my website as well, drwillspeaks.com. I would love to hear about your journey and your story. I would love to connect with you. So at Dr. Will Speaks on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, LinkedIn is my name, Dr. Will Moreland. So please connect with me. We have a Facebook group where we have an empowerment group. It's called Genius Nation. You can find that on Facebook. Just look up Genius Nation. We would love to have you a part of the Genius Nation family. It's an empowerment zone where it's people that want to be the best versions of themselves meet up every day. I do a live video in there every single day, Monday through Friday. So I would love to connect with you and Dr. Will Speaks and Genius Nation.
Okay, and the Genius Nation, that's on Facebook. That's a Facebook group.
That's a Facebook group, just Genius Nation. It's a great group of individuals that love to inspire, love to impact, love to influence in a positive way. And so that's where we get our morning mojo from, in the Genius Nation.
Okay. Oh, and that's in the mornings
every morning at 6 a.m. PST, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in there live Monday through Friday.
Okay, that's great. I know the students or the client must be enjoying that experience with the years of experience that you have and bring to those individuals. So I'm looking forward to joining the group coming over. Yes, and I saw you had a speaker training earlier in September. Do you have any more of those coming up?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, we have a speakers academy, that's Genius Speakers Academy, where I help speakers, authors, and consultants build their brand, build their business, and build their bank account. And every quarter, every 90 days, we do a specialized training called Give Me the Mic. And so this is where we come together to reset, refocus, refresh ourselves for our business. We examine our businesses to make sure that we're on track. We bring in other speakers. We've had some, dynamic speakers that have joined us. We bring in billionaires, we bring in millionaires, we bring in highly successful people that are succeeding in life, and they hang out with us for 3 days and train us and get us right for the next level of excellence in our business. So you can find that more information about the Academy at Dr. Will Speaks or drwillspeaks.com. Just click on the Academy tab. We would love for you to be a part of that family. If you're a speaker, an author, a consultant, a trainer, a leader that really wants to take your business to the next level, we would love to have you be a part of it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing that. So my final question to you, what impact do you want to have on the world?
So when I think about my impact and I think about my legacy, I just want to, as I said earlier, play my role, do my part. I believe each of us have a part to play. And so I just want to continuously serve. I want to continuously provide the world with information that will help them become the best version of themselves. I want to make sure that I establish a legacy for my family so they can continuously build upon what we've done here for the last 20 plus years. And so for me, it's just simply to be service. Jesus' disciples asked him, who is the greatest among them? And he said, it's the person who serves. And so if you want to be great, I think you have to take the pathway of service. And so that's what I want to continuously do, is be a service to my fellow humans and humanity, and just continuously to travel the world, man, and spread my message that everybody has genius potential on the inside of them.
And that's a great reminder, because society at times, what's happening around you can cause you to forget that you do have genius in you and potential. And so that's a great reminder to each individual that you come in contact with. So Dr. Moreland, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate the insight. And I know the listeners will also appreciate, the insight that you share from the choices we make, the vision we have of ourselves, because the vision helps us to make the right choices. And so it's important that we have a vision and start making the choices that are in alignment with the vision we have for ourselves. So Dr. Moreland, thank you for being here.
Well, I want to thank you as well, man, for creating this platform and bringing these voices together. I know it's going to make a tremendous impact in our community, for men in our community, for men of color in our community. So thank you for championing this initiative to bring us all together. I've seen the lineup. You have some great individuals. I saw many of my friends that are going to be a part of this series. So once again, thank you for playing your role in making this world a better place.
Thank you.